Good morning and welcome to a beautiful day at the Sayers Trig Bushland Reserve, where we're going to ask the question, what's the difference between good leadership and really great leadership? The first thing we need to address is what leadership is. And this is where it's important to understand how we use words, because leadership, by the definition in dictionary, is a noun, similar to relationship. It's a noun. But if we use these words incorrectly, it makes it difficult to us to move forward in how we do things. So for example, using the relationship example, most of us have probably had the experience of being in a relationship that hasn't quite worked out. And we've probably used the words, I have a bad relationship. And that's technically not correct, because where did you go and get it? Did you go to the shop and buy your relationship? It's not something that you have. What it is it's actually a verb. What you're doing in that situation is you're relating to somebody. So it's not that you have a bad relationship, is that you're relating to someone in a way that's not giving you the results that you want. And that's an important distinction when we're talking about leadership, because in a similar way, leadership is not something you have. Great leaders aren't naturally born. It's how they do things. So they have the process of leading, which is an important distinction to make as well, is because when you look at great leaders, for example, they have a process. It's not random. So they have a set of systems that they follow. I'm just being careful not to stand in Brendan kangaroo poo that I just went past. And they have a process that they follow, which gives them consistent results. And that's where processes and systems are really important, is because it does give you that ability to get consistent results, which is what great leaders do. They follow a process. And that's where it is really, really important to understand that leadership is not a thing. You don't go to a shop to buy leadership. People don't naturally have leadership. It's something that they do, and for those that do it well, and we're talking about great leaders here, so those who are exceptional at leading, they have a process that they follow. In this beautiful reserve, it's absolutely stunning on a morning like today. The sun is just creeping through there. It's very still. There is a bit of cloud in the sky, but it's just absolutely stunning this morning. And this woodland is, as you can see, it's just quite dense. As I was coming in, there was lots of kangaroos jumping around. It was beautiful. The other element of the leadership process is it is an action. It's a process and action that you do. And as a result, it's unconscious behavior. So a lot of times great leaders aren't aware of what they are doing, of the process that they are following. But there is a structure. And we did talk about that, and I have talked about that in other videos, where the process of acting is unconscious. It's different from knowing, which is a conscious action. And that's an important distinction to make, because a lot of times people will learn things at a conscious level and then wonder why they're struggling to implement that. And that's the key. Implementation is a big, big difference to knowing. And implementation requires changes at an unconscious level. But there is a process that is followed, and that's why they get those consistent results. And it all comes from the unconscious action. I'm just having a look around where I'm going, because I'm not really sure now. I'm trying to work it out. There's this big tree that's fallen over, but what we've got here are the tree roots. So if I swing around, you'll be able to see it. And I was just trying to work out from an art perspective, what is this? It's kind of got these, it's kind of like a piece of art someone might have designed. Well, nature's designed it. And I was just wondering, maybe you can make a comment in the comments as to what you think this might represent in the art world. pretty cool. When we look at great leaders, we're talking great leaders as opposed to good leaders. So Gandhi, Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, Mary Anderson, who comes to mind. Mary Anderson invented the windshield wiper. So we look at those leaders and they have a process that they follow. And I said a lot of times they probably don't know that they're following a process. But there's lots of elements within that they have. There's communication, there's a vision, there's inspirational skills, there's a lot of soft skills that they have. There's personal power, where they have the ability to control how their own inner processes. And there's four of those. There's four key elements that all great leaders have. So when we're looking at a process, it is something that is steps that are followed. If I put it that way, that might make it a little bit easier to comprehend, to explain, is that there are steps that are followed at an unconscious level. And those four, we'll start in reverse order. The fourth element that they have, the fourth component, is being a change master. Just looking at where I've got to go, and I'm thinking I've got to walk back up here again. So being a change master is really, really important, because when you think about it, in the world that we live in, times are constantly changing. Nature's always evolving, and it's similar for any organization that you might be in charge of. The circumstances always evolving. Just going to be really careful going down here because I don't want to slip. If you are walking here, just be mindful there are some steep paths here. And this makes sense from a knowledge perspective, but again, we don't act from knowledge, from a conscious level. We act from an unconscious level. This is really slippery. Excuse me for a minute. So just make it through here. And because we act at an unconscious level, unless at an unconscious level we have embraced being a change master, leading is going to be really, or being a great leader is going to be very difficult. I don't know if this shows on the camera, but it's extremely steep. I think I've nearly made it to the bottom. And this is where, as a leader, you want to put that in context. Nearly didn't. That might have been very entertaining for you. This phone I'm holding, if you were to buy a new phone, would you base buying that phone on reviews that were 6 months old or 12 months old? You simply wouldn't, because they'd be out of date and you wouldn't be getting the most recent information. So I did make it all the way to the bottom without falling over, but it is quite steep. I don't know if we come around this way, there's another path that comes down here as well, that goes up that way. See if I can make it up here. I'm not going to climb all the way up, but I think it gives you an idea of yeah, it's quite steep. There's this nice little gully. It's very peaceful and tranquil. If I spin around this way, you've got, just again, this lush green, soft because it is a bit wet. There's little paths that go all different ways that you can sort of sneak through. And yeah, we're at the bottom here. There's a pine forest over that way. This is lovely. Very, very lovely. So why is being a change master important for a leader? That's because just as in nature, there is a birth, life, and death of pretty much everything, especially within business. Things evolve and move forward. You have the start for those of you who have started businesses, you'll know at the very start, it's all very exciting. There's lots happening. There's lots of new things that you're learning and lots of energy happening. And then you get into a rhythm and things are going smoothly. And then after that, all of a sudden we hit what we call, or lovingly call, the wall. And that's where things are not working anymore. There might have been new competition steps into the market. A number of factors could have affected how it's operating, but what you were doing no longer seems to work. And that's where a lot of people will then use the term, we've got to go back to basics. And it's a very, very common term that's used, and this is where that doesn't work. So I'm going to see if I can take you through some of this track and just show you how really cool it is. Like you've got these little, this is really cool. It goes up that way. So this is just some of the pathway here that you can actually go on and go through. We've got the pine forest on the side and the Bushland Reserve on this side. So I'm sort of on the border of both. Check this out, this is really cool. Got to duck down. Can't make it through. It's really certainly encroaching on you walking through. Given that it's uphill, it's probably a good thing because I can't go too fast going through here. Wow. That's pretty awesome. There's a clearing. I nearly slipped over. So when you hit the wall, if you were to then try and operate your business by going back to basics in an AI world, and you're trying to go back to basics of, say, the dawn of the internet or before, it's not going to be very effective. And this is where being a change master is really, really critical as a leader. As an unconscious behavior, you need to be in a position where when change happens, when you hit the wall, unconsciously, immediately, you're thinking of, okay, how do we change to adapt? How do we evolve? An example of this, many people might be familiar with the product baking soda, which was originally used for baking. And then as more convenient things happened, more convenient ways of cooking happened, baking became something that we didn't do anymore. And so if we're going through that life cycle of the product, birth, life, and death, it looks like it might be the end of that product. But that's not what happened with baking soda. They found new uses for it. So you used it to take smells out of the refrigerator. You used it as a cleaner, those kind of things. So it had a new S curve. It had a new life. And that's what we want to be looking for when we're thinking about being a change master. At an unconscious level, you want to be looking at how you can change, how you can evolve, how you can grow. So we're not going back to basics. And a lot of this comes back to the direction you're going, the goals that have been set, and where you are headed. And that will determine the actions that you take. So rather than going back to basics, it's more about looking at where are we going and how can we change and adapt to be able to do that. As you're walking along, it's quite dense, but then you get these occasional little windows. I wanted to show you this. As you look through there, it's kind of like this window through the forest. It's really cool. And that's where, as leaders today, being a change master, we want to be a master of the skills, of having the skills of dealing with ambiguity, of things not being as we expected, of embracing things that are out of the ordinary. Because change is happening and change happens fast, and every generation says it's happening too fast and the world's going to end. I don't think that's right. But certainly change is happening and it does happen. And as a leader, to be a great leader, all great leaders do have that component of being a change master. So ambiguity is something that they embrace, but it's something that they embrace from an unconscious level. So as a leader, have a think about how you operate. Pay attention to your thoughts and processes when you're experiencing things like change, when something out of the ordinary happens. Notice what happens for you internally. Do you get excited by that, or do you fear that? Because that will give you an indication as to what your unconscious process is. Because great leaders have that ability to embrace change. Not only do they embrace change, but they change and evolve. I made it back to where I started. I've done a loop around the outside. There are lots and lots of tracks within there that can be explored. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. When we're differentiating great leadership from ordinary leadership, there are 4 key components, as I mentioned at the start. And the 4th component of that is to be a change master. And that's where you embrace change. It's part of how you operate unconsciously. And that's what makes the difference between people that are okay leaders and people that are great leaders. They immediately react. When something changes, they embrace it and they move forward rather than going back to basics. And back to basics is the kiss of death. So that's the 4th skill. We'll cover the others off in separate videos, and hope you've enjoyed the Sayers Trig Bushland Reserve. It's very, very dense. There's a lot to walk through here. It's a little hidden gem to explore and enjoy nature. And I think I overdressed because it's a little bit warmer than I was expecting. But we're moving into that time of year. Stopping to give you another view of this wonderful Bushland Reserve. It is so dense, the forest is so thick. There's a little valley that goes through here, then goes back up again. It's really, really quiet. And it's got all these little ferns coming up, and you can hear the lyrebirds calling out as you walk around. It's very still. There's a couple of kookaburras as well. I think that was when I was going down the steep part of the hill, and I could hear them giggling a little bit, waiting for me to fall, and I didn't. So they can laugh on their own side of their cheeks if kookaburras have cheeks. It's just magic.